Hello and welcome back to Positive Fandom. I am your host, Rrr Mmmm, and today we have Tom Jr. Jackson with us. How are you today, Tom Jr. Jackson?
I'm great. I feel like I've done this before.
You
It
have
was
done this.
earlier this morning, which was a great stream. This one's gonna be great because we fully awake now. You
We
know,
are fully awake this time. Hello to everybody who's listening to the stream. It was a spontaneous thing. I definitely had to do another stream. You know, Tom and I were up very early in the morning. What was it, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. this morning, doing a
yep.
live stream about the episode 5 of the Book of Boba Fett. And, you know, I am still so pumped up. I haven't been able to think about anything else since that time. And that was 12 hours ago that he and I were on the air. And Tony also joined us for a little while. But I've been so excited, so pumped up, just so, charged from seeing this episode 5 of the Book of Boba Fett that really was such a deviation and not quite what I was expecting. Tom and I are kind of going to rehash what we were thinking about earlier because we spoke quite a lot and had a lot to say, but I was so tired while we were talking. There's so much more that I can say about this incredible episode. What about you, Tom?
Yeah. I would have to say that the whole series of the Book of Boba Fett is nothing that no one's been expecting. It has been more or less like a surprise each time, but this episode was a big surprise.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, I got so excited after I saw the episode, and it was just by happenstance because I happened to wake up at that time and I said, oh, look, it's almost 3 o'clock. Maybe I should watch the episode. And so I turned on my television, watched the episode, and I was very glad I did. And I got so excited after I saw the episode that I went and got my Fennec Shand cosplay. It's not tailored to me yet. I still have to have like different things done to the arm so that it's not too long. But I went and I put it on, and I just thought to myself, this is great. This is such an exciting episode. The things that happen in this episode, the approach to the episode. Hey, Mark O'Brien, the approach to the episode, everything about it was so incredible that I said, hey, you know what? You know what's happening here? You know what we're seeing? Din is bringing sexy back. So that's why I called this this episode that name, because for me, it feels like Din is bringing sexy back to the show. It's got a lot of these things that we have been wanting. And I kind of have to thank, I think it's Charlie the Unicorn who had made a reply in another stream about this. He had said some of the things that were missing from the Book of Boba Fett, essential to Star Wars viewers' joys, are romance, vehicles, droids, design, characters showing us doing amazing things, not telling us about them, and mysticism. And we got a lot of that in this episode. I mean, it was just so much fun to watch. And, I kind of like didn't even have a chance to think about how incredible it was while I was watching it because it had so many unbelievable things in it. And I have to admit that it did feel like it might have been episode 1 of season 3 of The Mandalorian. What did you think, Tom?
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think that it was very much an episode that was needed. But also it gives you a little bit of a break now because you're looking at the other side of that conversation of, well, we can get a muscle if we hire it. So now you're getting the other side of that conversation of where, okay, we have to go find Mando. And it leaves you also wondering what's going on now with Boba. Is someone attacking him? Is things going wrong? You're finding out what happened with Mando from after Grogu left up to now. And it was done in such a way that didn't feel like, oh, here we go with another flashback. It was very much something that you wanted to see. You wanted to know where it was going to go. He has the dark saber. He is looking for his own kind. He's looking to get a reward for one of the dog people. I don't know what the name of that species is. I just call it the dog people.
Good.
But still, it was, and they were in that city or um,
Yes.
spaceport that looked amazing.
God, I want to go to that place so bad. Like this is the type of stuff
Yeah,
that gets you excited when we're watching stuff in this Star Wars universe that we love to see. It looks so real. This live action, whatever this place is called, I absolutely want to take a trip to go on there and just kind of like see what that amazing build that they made, this space station or space whatever it is world. It's so amazing. I can't get over how cool it looks. There's so much in it, Tom. It's just so cool.
and it, for the amount of time that episode was, it must have been what, 50 minutes, something like that. It felt like a good 2 hours stuck into 50 minutes with everything you could ever want to see. And I have a feeling that spaceport is going to end up becoming a Lego set.
Oh man. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be so amazing. Tom, there were
It
so many
will.
cool things in it. It looked so sharp and crisp and real on the screen. It looked like it was in space. It looked like it was somewhere in space. But yet it felt very solid and very, just amazing in general. I'm really just so pleased with it. I can't say enough about it. Just we're just so lucky to even see something like this. And it's just amazing. I mean, they didn't tell us what it was called, but when you looked at it, it was something that you always imagined would be in the Star Wars universe. And I'm sure in a
Right.
comic book perhaps somewhere, or in a novel somewhere, someone has described it or talked about it, some of the these special builds that they have in space. But this was just like a dream come true. If I could have dreamed up what that would have looked like, I think that's what the dream would have been.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I've had some time to think about this episode today. And I know how during some of our chat this morning, we were bringing up the prequels. And I seem to remember someone, when they announced the prequel, someone went, well, is it going to look dark and dingy and just like the original ones were, dirty everywhere? But when you see the prequels, everything's all clean. And the joke was, well, as it goes on, the CGI and the technology will get worse and worse, just like it was in the original film. And looking at this space dock, everything was clean and crisp and like shiny, something you weren't expecting. And I could actually, I would love to see a whole episode of either Mando or Boba Fett take place in that area. I could see Lucasfilm doing a whole show based on that spaceport, because who knows, you could tell dozens of stories in that with different villains, different heroes, and new characters. Like it's uh, an endless thing for a plot. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, like endless ideas for it.
Yes, yes. And I see Mark O'Brien is commenting about it. He was saying that it's 2001 Polis Massive Vibes too. There's so many cool vibes from this. He says that's a George ST planet. Never repeat the same planet twice. It really was very special. Whoever thought of this particular location took a lot of care to make this look incredibly real for us. It felt very tangible. It felt like something that was very solid and you could live on. And I've just never, honestly, Tom, it might have been some of the best effects that I've seen in a very, very long time. It was cinematic quality effects
Yes,
that
that's the one.
really just totally blew me away when I think about what we get to a chance to see, and the way that you imagine what the worlds might be like. and what it must be like to be in space, what it would be like to live on a space station. This is what I would imagine that it must be like, because it felt so cool to be in this location. And no matter what was going on, he's kind of retrieving this guy who had kind of jumped bail, and there he was doing his business as a bounty hunter, which we always imagined he would be doing. But we got a special treat, because when he first encountered this, the person, the bounty, he surprisingly pulled out the Darksaber. Now, honestly, Tom, I don't know why, but I wasn't really expecting Din to kind of like use the Darksaber at a moment's notice. What do you think?
No, I wasn't either. But then again, with the Mandalorian, anything's possible. I mean, look, he had Grogu. He wasn't expecting to have the relationship with him, but yet it just turned out during the course of those 2 seasons, they've grown close. They come up with a bond. It was something I don't think even the people at Lucasfilm were expecting, to see how much people were going to love that combo of Grogu and Din. So yeah, I have to say this episode very much surprised me in many, many ways that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, and so it is kind of interesting, because we've learned like a lot about the Darksaber, and there's a lot of lore to it. This thing is really special, and I honestly, what I think is very interesting. Oh, Michael Lito is saying, have either of you ever seen Star Trek Beyond? I asked because this location reminded me of Yorktown Station.
Yes, the
And
Yorktown Station was like a big round station. And it very much had that feel to it. And now that I think of it, it did remind me of that. Thank you, Mikey Lito, for bringing that up, because I would have forgotten all about that feeling connection with that station.
Yes,
and that was, I mean, that the station itself is beautiful.
That's very interesting. I do remember Star Trek Beyond vaguely. I don't remember that film as well as I should, especially since it's probably one of the last Star Trek films that I've seen.
Right.
Even though it's is it from 09 or something like that?
No, 09 was the first one, Star Trek. The second one was Into Darkness. And right now, I'm sure somewhere Rob is watching this going, please don't talk about those.
Well,
and
we're
then the
not.
third one, the third one is Beyond, where they do that beautiful tribute at the end to Leonard Nimoy.
Yes. And of course, what we're talking about is the Book of Boba Fett, episode 5, that just came out I guess today at 3 a.m. Eastern time. And as I said to you guys who were listening in, Tom and I did review it initially in fits of exhaustion, but also just like in elation of how great this episode was and how much fun it was to watch something like this. It had a very cinematic feel. Mikey Lito and Tom are both saying that it had, this really cool look of the Yorktown station. And, perhaps they took inspiration from that. It just looked so amazing. Din was back to what he normally would be doing, which is bounty hunting. And, I had actually questioned Tom whether he would go back to being a bounty hunter, only because he's now become so high profile, and, things kind of seemed, like he has this expensive armor. And I always thought that people would just be hunting him down or trying to obtain that armor from him. But he seems to be sort of like heading back on track. And ironically, he needed to get that bounty and to get information from the people who he got the bounty from, or the money from. And I thought that was interesting, because that kind of sticks to what we know about Din and have seen Din do in the past. So often he's had to kind of barter for information, or he's had to complete a task to go ahead further in the story. And this was no different here. He had to go ahead and complete that task so that he could find out some information from people who were paying him. And interestingly enough, Mark O'Brien says, even though he was back at bounty hunting, he was still providing for the Mando conclave. And this is very interesting that Mark brings that up, because you and I were talking about this earlier, Tom. Um, once Mando does complete that task of getting the bounty, and we got to see him get hardcore raw on this, right? He cut the
Yeah.
guy's head off. That was badass. What do you think of that?
But the way it was done, where they close the thing, and you just hear it from the outside. You just see the shadow of him taking the dark saber down,
It was
and
so
all
badass.
the dog people standing outside looking like,
What
what's going
the?
on in there? Do we got to take care of this? And he comes out going, look, I mean, no harm to you. I've gotten who I need. There's all these credits in there that if you need it, you want to make your life better, go for it. And they just stood there, and then they just all went right in there and got their
Mhm.
money.
And Paul in Long Beach is with us. Hi, Paul in Long Beach. Brings the sexy back. So when I say he brings the sexy back, he brings back the things that we want to see in the series, making it sexier to all of us. We want to see some badass, challenges and fights, and people kind of like losing, beheadings, traveling from one location to another in space. We even got a new ship. This was bringing the sexy back for me, and so that's why I yes,
Right.
certainly. Certainly, Paul.
Also, it also brings up the fact that everybody has been saying, well, where's the action? There is some action, but where's this? Why are we still on one planet? Why can't we move on to a little something different? And now they brought Mando in, and they've done this little mini Mandalorian type episode, and you got all your action there. You got your different planet. Actually, you got two different places that he went to, that space place and back to, oh no,
Yes, and Tatooine.
yeah, well, Tatooine as well. But you got to see a different place in Tatooine this time. I mean, and there were probably still tons of stories you could tell on Tatooine for all we know. It's not all just Mos Eisley. There's other places there. But I love the fact that, you know, uh, after he got his bounty, he went to bring it to the people who were going to give him his reward, and telling him where to find the others, which you didn't really, you're like, the others? What's he talking about? And once he gets there, you start to see him put on like the ultraviolets or something like that.
Yeah, the scanner.
You see all
Yeah.
the arrows leading him to where he needs to go. And then you see the Mandalorian crest above a
Yes.
door. And you're like,
Yes, the mythosaur.
where?
Yeah.
And you're like, where is this going? And then you see him going
Yes.
down the ladder where he almost falls because he got hurt with the dark saber.
Right. He hurt himself. He injured
Yeah.
himself. And
And
I kind of like that he injured himself, Tom, because he's not perfect at wielding this dark saber, is he?
right, right. Paul in
He's
Long Beach says, bringing the slicey MFers in half. Yeah.
not. Well, he actually cut himself very badly, and to be honest with you, I think they had to show some realism, because he can't be perfect at wielding something that he's recently acquired. Maybe he's had it for a year, let's say speculatively. Maybe he's had it for a year or a few months. That dark saber doesn't look like the easiest thing to use. And frankly, if I had to use a lightsaber and that was like my weapon, I'd be afraid of that thing. I would be afraid that I might hurt myself with it. It's a huge responsibility.
Well, then again, if you think about it, when Luke Skywalker was handed it to himself, what did he do with it? Look straight down the, like, oh, what's this? And I mean, for all he knows, he could have just hit the button by accident and zoop, and that
Yeah,
would have been the end of the movie. But
yes.
I think the great thing is that Mando finds his clan, I guess that you would call it,
Yes. Yes.
but there's only two of them left, in that little clan. And then you realize this is the outcome of that that big fight from episode season 1, where they're all going up against each other so he can get the kid out of there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's either season 1 or season 2. Anyways, someone will correct me. I know they will. But the great thing is that he was sitting there talking to the armorer, who no one was expecting to see, and she asks to see what he has. She sees it's the dark saber, and gives him, meaning us, the audience, a little primer on the um the dark saber, and then gives
Yeah.
us a little primer on Bo Katan, because not a whole lot of people may know her, but they give you her background as well, and so now you understand it, where it's, not some long drawn out thing. It's done in like what, 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes.
It
This is
is
what the dark
rather.
saber does. This is who Bo Katan was, and there you go.
Yeah, you make such a good point, Tom. It's very interesting because, we were all wondering what the armorer may or may not have told Din about, what's going on just outside of the Enclave. And despite the fact that I guess it's just the three of them now, um, yeah, she's trying to train him in how to use this dark saber, and it doesn't look easy. In fact, there's what I think might be kind of interesting is that Din has some other personal things going on that it's making it hard for him to use this blade. But to be honest with you, seeing the armorer there, and like you said, Tom, when he goes down that ladder and you can see her kind of looking out, and you thought that she was meditating, like it looked like she was meditating, as you said. And it
Yeah,
did, Tom, like it was very peaceful. And it was a reunion, I guess, but it was very peaceful reunion, like something that felt very natural. They must have been aware what he had been up to, or maybe they
right.
didn't have all the information. But Tom, that was like such a satisfying moment to see the armorer almost as if she was waiting for him.
Yeah, that's what I felt like. And then you had who you dubbed Heavy Mando, bulked up Mando, Mando on steroids. I mean, and he goes to Mando, we'll put you to work. That way you'll have something to do.
Now, honestly, Tom, one of the first things that I thought was going to happen, and hello, RRT, TNZ, one of the first things that I thought was going to happen between you and I was that traditionally what happens is that Mando just surrenders everything, and, he doesn't really get much back, or I'm not going to say that they're stingy about it, but he gives it to the group. They share everything that I guess they find. And I thought for sure that when he surrendered the dark saber, that the armorer was going to keep it. I mean, what did you think?
Yeah, I had that feeling too. I don't know. I got that feeling like, let me see what you have. And he just hands it over. And I thought she was going to see that and keep it. But also, the thing that really shocked me that we learned is that the dark saber is not only made by a Mandalorian, but a Jedi as well.
Yes, Tar Vizsla, who is one of the ancestors of like an ancient Mandalorian, more or less, who is well known for that. And I loved how she's starting to tell Din a little bit more about what's going on. For example, when she explains to him that the Mandalorians have been around, the Empire has been around for 50 years or 30 years or whatever it was, but the Mandalorians have been around for 10,000 years. And it
Right.
really felt very like powerful, because what I kind of liked about it was that even though there was only three of them there, she was almost saying that nothing's really going to ever kill off all the Mandalorians. And I hope that that's true. Like, in my deep heart, um I just hope that it's a situation where going forward there's always going to be Mandalorians in the Star Wars universe. I don't want there to ever be a situation where it's like the Mandalorians are an extinct group. No, I don't ever want to see that. I always
Right.
want the Mandalorians to be around forever. That, I mean, that's just how I feel about it. I think it was be very exciting that they seem to kind of be a very strong group of people, and we just get to enjoy, how they are going through. And it looks like we have Mikey Lito joining us here.
Let's just bring them on.
Hey,
Hey,
Mikey Lito.
hello.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. You look beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I so
Well,
appreciate that.
I love that outfit. I told Tom in text or private message that earlier this morning I did watch the episode, not quite live, maybe like behind by 15 minutes, and then I immediately went to bed and I woke up around 6 a.m. and I'm going like, what's going on? These two are like on the air. They didn't say anything about having an episode, and here you are again. So
Yes.
so you're really excited. I'm happy for the both of you. Obviously, I'm not as enthusiastic as the two of you are. Because I was totally blown away. It was like this is an episode of The Mandalorian that they just like dropped in. I even like rewound and saw like, oh no, the opening slide says Boba Fett. What's going
Yeah.
on? So it's very interesting. The biggest thing that I can bring to the conversation, and I don't know, I don't want to spoil your enthusiasm, is like I said, I immediately thought of Yorktown Station from Star Trek Beyond. It gave me that visual, visual recognition was something that I saw right away.
Yeah, I
And
thought that too. I couldn't think of where I saw something like that. And now that you mentioned it, I'm like, that's where.
it was very realistic. So to be perfectly honest, I'm completely confused. I'm hanging on Tom's enthusiasm that something really dramatic is going to happen, well, now in these next two episodes, because it to me this series is just all over the map, and the wide variation in the quality of the shows, it's just really making me nuts.
Right.
So
Um,
but I did enjoy the episode just as a viewer, and I'm waiting to see whether this goes. Um, what is the time frame here? This is supposed to be current time, or is this like somewhere within
yes.
the frame of the films? Where is this?
Okay. This is, let me think here. So when we see Boba come out of the pit, that is 5 years previously. So that's like a little bit right after Return of the Jedi. This is 5 years after that. So this is now running at the same time as
So they're running in the time frame between the
right after
original
Grogu leaving.
original trilogy and the sequel trilogy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Got it.
As a matter of fact, I believe wasn't there a few articles about this today, RM?
There are, and we are going to talk about this. And I'm first of all, Mikey, I'm so glad you joined the stream. Obviously, I want a different opinion on here, and I welcome the different opinions, as you already know about me. Um,
Hmm.
and we are gonna. There is an article that I want to talk about that kind of talks about this, and it's exactly the point that you're bringing up. It's about the fact that many fans are very conflicted over the fact that they kind of put in, Mandalorian's, season 3, episode 1 in the middle of the Book of Boba Fett. So, I definitely want to talk about that, but I still also want to talk about some other things that you liked, that you saw in the episode, and just things that off the top of your head that you really enjoyed seeing. In addition to how cool that I guess space station looked. What other things caught your eye, Mikey?
Well, I'm not sure about the atmosphere of the Mandalorian type episodes. This episode to me seemed to run at like three-quarter speed. It was just like they had a lot that they wanted to accomplish. I don't know what the running time of the episode is. That's actually a good question for myself, because everything took place at a deliberate pace. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't like, oh, we have to get to, a lot happened, but they took their time getting there and what have you. Uh, I I like I kept thinking like he's not quite as smart as he normally is. It didn't seem like to me. Um, like I was surprised that he would give up his bounty so easily, and also the fact that he gave up the dark saber so easily. So I I'm not really sure. I'm interested in hearing the two of your opinions, and I can just like throw in an opinion when I have one.
Okay. Well, what did you think about seeing the armorer back with her forging tools and kind of set up on this enclave now? Do you think that they're going to be bringing more people in? It's just the three of them, Mikey. You know, she's got this big forge. She's going to be pumping out weapons for Din and for Visla, Paz Visla, who is the heavy Mando character, who has already challenged Din to that
Right.
dark saber. Were you surprised, Mikey, when Paz Vizsla directly challenged Din and didn't manage to get it from him? Because if you look at Tar Vizsla, as far as I'm concerned, he could crush Mando. What do you think?
Yeah, he was a big dude. First, something that just hit my brain. It was at the end of season one, Tom, when they had the big battle that with all the different Mandalorians and what have you.
Right.
That was There was a couple of things about those scenes that surprised me. I was surprised. Uh, she told him that the Beskar spear um, could like even penetrate his armor, and still he easily gave it up. So he's a very trusting person, because I don't know that I would have given it up. But he gave her the Vesper spear to forge into those little rings that he has for Grogu and what have you. Uh, I I gotta say I wasn't really surprised that he's looking for Grogu, because they developed quite a personal relationship over the two seasons of his show. So that didn't the fact that he's looking for Grogu, that didn't surprise me too much. It just showed you how attached that he was to Grogu. Um, as far as the battle between him and the other Mandalorian is concerned, that was another thing that kind of surprised me, because the other guy is like pretty huge. He's pretty strong, and uh, he Din didn't really listen to her when she's trying to train him as to how to use the dark saber. He kept trying to do his own thing and what have you, which was why he was having so many problems and why he injured himself. So it's that's really cute. I've been wanting to. I've been. I've been. I've been wanting to get. I. I don't get a whole lot of stuff because I don't have a whole lot of places to store stuff and what have you. But I have wanted Grogu. I have to admit that he's kind of gotten to me like he's gotten to everyone else. So it you know those scenes were really interesting. I'm really interested in where this whole thing goes, and I'm really kind of upset with Favreau and Filoni, because they really should have just made this one show instead of just like bouncing it around. And I guess maybe that's what they were trying to do, but the whole thing is very confusing, and you really don't understand why the Boba Fett episodes are so completely different in tone than the Mandalorian episodes, tone and quality. It's really strange to me.
Hmm. And a lot of people have said that, and that's a legitimate comment, because so many people do feel that, and I do feel that way myself. That it does feel very different from episode to episode, and from the Mandalorian, which is the bounce back season that we've been kind of experiencing, other than, let's say, the Bad Batch. We're expecting something that has more of a similar tone, I think, from episode to episode, but I think that however they planned on doing this series, I don't know whether, Tom had mentioned, and I mean you, Tom, Junior Jackson, Tom had mentioned in the past that he thought that they were going to kind of like flip it on us. And this was a total flip, was it not?
Yes, it very much was total flip in tone, drama, something that was going on. Uh, the Actually, even the Tatooine scenes and what have you with the starfighter and everything, that was all very interesting. Uh, it's really strange to me. It is so strange because I expected, since Favreau was the one that was principally getting credit for the tone of the Mandalorian show, that these first four episodes, I had a very difficult time getting through episodes, getting even to watch episodes 2 through 4. I was so completely bored by episode 1. I had no idea what was going on because I can't remember the last time that I saw Return of the Jedi. So when he showed up in the Sarlacc pit, I'm going like, what's going on? I think I even made a comment at the time. It's like there was no reference point for any general audience member to come in and understand what was going on. And in between when episode 1 premiered and when I finally got around to episodes 2 through 4, I literally went back and watched uh, Empire and
Mhm,
Return
mhm.
of the Jedi so that I would understand possibly what was going on in the Book of Boba Fett. So once I got that reference and what have you, then I dived in and watched episodes 2 through 4. So it was like, okay, now I understand what's going on. I still don't understand why the quality's all over the map. And then we finally get to episode 4, and the shopkeeper goes, "Well, Boba, nobody really respects you." I'm going, this is like WandaVision, where they're they're talking in the script about what the audience is thinking because nobody could possibly think. I feel like it was like bath time with Boba every time I was watching every couple of weeks.
Well, Mikey,
So
RRTNZ says Boba is the bantha in the room. Things go better when he's not there. What do you think about that?
uh, that's very true. I'm really trying to wait until the end. I have a little different opinion than our friend Rob Burnett because I'm trying to wait till chapter 7 to see whether or not this thing is finally going to pay off. I really wish they would have structured it differently and did all the flashbacks chronologically at the beginning of the show. I know Catherine talked with you about this, RM, in your episode 4 recap, and just told the story chronologically. It would have made a lot more sense for general audience members, which is what I consider myself to be. Um, Boba, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with him. I'm trying to figure out why the Huts just, well, never mind. We're Here's a little present for you and what have you. So now that you can put in your pit, I don't know what's going on at the castle because in the movies there was all kinds of activity going on at the castle, and with Boba, there's nothing going on. So I'm just trying to be patient. Tom has a spell on me. I'm trying to be patient until we get to the end of this to see whether or not anything actually happens. And it won't bother me as much as it'll bother other people if Sebastian Stan shows up. So,
Well, I certainly want to talk about that too. And I have a question for Tom, just as well. Tom, what did you make of Boba? What did you make of the Mandalorian going to Tatooine and getting this new ship from Pele? Did you like this ship, and did you like that segment of the episode?
You know that when he was going back to Mandalore. when he was going back to Tatooine, I thought somehow he was going there to meet up with Fennec and Boba. I wasn't expecting them to go back to the mechanic. And he's like, "So where's this Razor Crest? You told me you had a Razor Crest." And she's like, "No, I have something like that's like it or better than it." And so she shows him, and I thought that was Anakin Skywalker's pod racer at first, and it really, it made my mouth drop. I was like, "Oh my god, is that what I think it is?" And then she mentioned that it was a cruiser from the planet Naboo. So obviously, I forgot who it was that brought it up in the chat this morning. It either came from Obi-Wan or I forgot who the other person was that may have had that. Or that may have been the ship that Anakin had when he was a kid, and they told him, sit here, do not move. That may have been the ship that went up and accidentally stopped that whole fight. Where he was just supposed to sit there and do nothing, and the ship went off on its own, and that may be what it's from. But I love how they worked on that ship. They got some Jawas to bring them materials, and let's just stop and talk about the Jawas for a second. Where the mechanic goes, "I used to date one. They're furry." They're furry. So in a way, it seems they've given us now what they look like underneath their robes, and it's sort of, they didn't have to show it; they just say they're furry, and then you go, "Okay, I can imagine that." It's something you can imagine. And I one of the Jawas went, I guess, tried to ask her out again. She said, "No, I'm kind of doing me now, but thanks anyways." But it's the little things, like the little BD droid. That reminded me a lot of Grogu. And
Right.
the way that reminded me of Grogu is when they're fixing the ship and he's asking him with the flashlight, BD with the flashlight, "No, higher. No, no, you got to go higher." And it reminded me of that little scene of where they were trying to fix the inside of the Razor Crest with Grogu. And he's like, "No, no, go a little bit higher. Go a little bit higher." "Oh, this is never going to work." And then finally it worked.
He's very patient.
Yeah. And that's another thing that we discussed this morning. Why does Din give everything up so easily? He gave away his the dark saber to the armorer, or when he got to the spaceport, they needed him to put all his weapons in a box, and he just did it. And I said to myself, he's doing this for a reason, and the reason is he doesn't want to listen to someone making excuses of why he has to do it. He doesn't want to listen to someone argue about it. He's like, "I'm just going to give it to you. You'll give this back to me. I just don't want to listen to it."
He
So it's
does.
very much
He does have a
trying
lot
to
of weapons,
avoid
don't he?
confrontation at all costs, which is smart, because why get into an argument when you can get into a fight sometime later with someone else? But once they came up with that, hold on here. Yes, Paul, that's true. The Razor Crest did have a cryo chamber and a restroom.
Yes, and a place to sleep. It has like a little
Yeah,
sleeping cabin, and you can walk around. It had a weapons storage section, which was nice.
yeah,
It also
and
had that bay door that just is like a ramp that comes down. That was
well,
nice.
I love the scene where he's testing out the I guess we'll call it his speeder, in a way, I guess, a speeder plane, whatever you want to call it, and how he just starts going through uh Tatooine, and then he shoots off. He goes, "Let's see how this really goes," and he gets up to the space, and he goes by the spaceport, and then he goes by the what do you call it, like the transporter, and you see
Hmm.
the little Greedo like character look out the
Yeah.
window, and then you see uh Mando go and just start to speed a bit. Then he gets stopped
Yeah.
by the two cops.
Yes, the rookie and the senior cop.
Right. And the senior cop was originally on the show uh, Kim's Convenience.
Yeah, he's a famous cosplayer, of course, as you
Right.
guys know. He's been cosplaying, I think, for Star Wars for like maybe 30 years as well. And I believe the
And,
story is that he's been showing up to shows so often that they decided to cast him
mhm.
in a Star Wars show.
And
So
then you can also, if you really want to make it meta in a way, you can connect it to Shang-Chi because the character of Shang-Chi, Simu Liu, worked on Kim's Convenience with him. So there's that little connection to that. So you can actually connect this episode of I want to keep calling it Mandalorian for some reason. Book of
it's okay.
Boba
You can
Fett.
call it that. It's
Yeah. So you can
you can call it
literally
that.
connect this episode a little bit to Marvel just because of that little connection between those two guys.
Darth Plato says
Uh,
they're not cops, they're gendarmes. Yes, they are, aren't they? I have to be honest with you both. I wanted to see a new Razor Crest. So I came in with, very biased towards the Razor Crest. And I still love that ship so much. And maybe we will see another Razor Crest, but I'm guessing the reason why we saw a ship that is like a speeder is because, Din is going to have this amazing um point in the story where he has to escape and he's going to need a fast ship, for some reason. It's a
right,
precursor to what we may be seeing in the future. But, for me, obviously, as you both are very well aware of, I love Grogu. And, I was not expecting to hear. The last thing I was expecting was a Mandalorian episode. But the second
right.
to the last thing that I was expecting was to hear him say, I want to make something for Grogu. And I was just like, my jaw just dropped to the ground. I was like, what? Like I was like, oh my God, what can he make for Grogu? Like he's so small. What do you make for a little guy to protect him? Like, what would you do? And so, everybody is with the consensus that it's chainmail or something like that. But it was just absolutely the most adorable thing. And Tom, you had pointed out that, they tied it up and it looked like it was the two ears, like Grogu's head, um,
Yeah. Because that
coming out.
the stuff was being held was round, and then when you
Yes.
pull it, the two things look like his ears.
Yes, and I thought that was very clever to do that. But I also wanted to mention that this was kind of like my dream come true for him to even say that, because I am worried about Grogu, and I have so many questions which I'm not going to propose in this stream because we would be here all night. But it has really piqued my curiosity now. I don't think we're going to see an episode where Din goes to see how Grogu is doing. I don't think we're going to find that out in the series, but perhaps in season 3 we might find out, or later on. But they certainly have aroused my curiosity. Now I am worried about Grogu. Like I'm worried that he may be in danger, and I just want to ask the two of you whether you believe that Din and Grogu have more than just an emotional connection. Do they have like some kind of psychic connection where they can sense when each one of them is in trouble? Because I got a sense that Grogu could sense when Din was in trouble, other than the obvious of looking at the situation. But I think that maybe he can actually feel some things that Din feels, and vice versa. What do you guys think?
I never really thought about it until you asked the question, but it's probably highly likely that there's some kind of emotional connection. Because I wasn't really surprised that, I mentioned this earlier, that he wanted to see Grogu. So he probably does have an emotional connection. And, based on the way things are going, because I really do think this is somewhat of a setup for Mandalorian season 3. We probably will not see Grogu in this series, except possibly a post-credit scene at the end of chapter 7, maybe there.
Maybe, or maybe even it would be the post-credit scene of chapter 6. You don't know, and that's the thing about the show is you really don't know what's going to happen. That's one of the things about it is you don't know who's going to show up or what's going to show up. Like I was discussing this morning that I get a Magnificent Seven type vibe to the Book of
Right.
Boba Fett, whereas Boba's picking people to come work for him, work with me, and he's setting up like this little gang. Whereas with the Mandalorian, you have that Clint Eastwood man with no name vibe to it. So they're definitely picking from different genres, like a bit of for Book of Boba Fett, it's more like a Magnificent Seven, Seven Samurai type deal there. So I think what we're going to end up having is uh, Boba's going to probably end up getting the Black Wookie, and he's going to have this gang of people there who he knows will help him. But then again, also we had uh, Tony on the show this morning, Bunyan Snipe, who made had a great theory about Boba Fett, which was what if the Boba Fett we're seeing is really a clone that watched the Razor Crest with Jango Fett and Boba in it leave, and this is just a rejected clone, and that is why he looks about 50 where he should, or 60 where he should be looking about 40. Because if this is taking place 2 year, 5 6 years after Return of the Jedi, he still should be looking a bit young in the age for that type. And I've never thought about that till Tony brought that up. Like this Boba Fett that we have is probably one that's very much a broken clone. And for all we know, the real Boba Fett is somewhere out there in the universe.
Well,
Yeah.
was this supposed to be like a detour that is really the Mandalorian story, but we need this little detour to understand what happened to the rest of the Mandalorians and bounty hunters that we've seen throughout the entire Star Wars series?
I don't
Um,
know.
maybe. What
Maybe,
I can say, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, Tom.
no, no, you're fine.
I think that it's a story that has some relevance because perhaps Mando brings people in that they're not expecting. But what's making it more confusing is that they're kind of preparing for this war on Tatooine, and it doesn't feel like they're preparing for it. That's the part that's surprising me. It feels very kind of subdued, and even though they're saying this means war and war can happen at any time, it doesn't feel like they're at attention for war for me.
That's why I said that Tom has me under his spell, because I can see elements of what he's talking about, where there's certain characters hovering around. I think people have been calling them you have the Vespa gang, and then you have the Black Wookie. So there's elements of what Tom is hoping for, but I have the same attitude as you are, Em. It's that you don't feel the dramatic tension. And the reason I brought up the question about is this a detour? I mean, uh, Tim, I don't know how to say his first name, but Tim Morrison, the
Uh-huh.
actor that plays Boba Fett, he's not getting any younger. So there are
Tamora Morrison.
yeah, there's no younger Boba Fett clones or Fett clones around anywhere, or what have you. So that fact, plus the fact of this is the rest of the Mandalorian clan, that kind of gives you the sense of, like I said, that this is a detour just to show you to give you some basis. It's all set up for season 3, basically,
Mhm.
to me.
Mhm. Yeah, and when they first introduced the Book of Boba Fett, I did a review for The Mandalorian because the way that they had introduced the Book of Boba Fett was that it was supposed to be the next chapter, chapter 17. And that kind of implied that it was a continuation of the story, and somehow the stories were weaved together. And I really do enjoy that notion of weaving them together, because I feel like, they have some fate. There's some fate between the Mandalorian and between Boba Fett. Now, I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but perhaps Din is actually someone who is very important in the Mandalorian culture, but we just don't know why he is. He does happen to be a foundling, but so is I guess more or less Jango Fett in a way. Kind of like a foundling, and then he happened to be adopted. I think it's Jaster. No, I can't remember who the person who adopted him, so to speak. And I hope I'm saying this right. So if I'm wrong, guys, I apologize. But that's how Django became part of that lineage, and hence Boba Fett is now part of a lineage of somebody who were some of the ancient rulers of Mandalore, or the most recent rulers of Mandalore, after Satine and her sister Bo-Katan trying to do that. But there may be some lineage about Din. I mean, we still don't know who took Din in. We know he's a child of the Watch, but we have no idea exactly where he stands in the social status of the Mandalorians. He might be someone very special, and then that might be revealed at some point, that he might be someone who is somewhat of a heavy in regards to the ancestry of the Mandalorians. What did you guys think? And before I get to the article, this is the last question that I'm going to ask before I get to this article that I want to talk about, which actually is directly what you brought up in the beginning, Mikey. So we are going to go full circle back to what you were talking about. But before we get to that, what do you both think about the fact that the armorer does not like Bo-Katan?
I have no opinion.
I found it to be a surprise there. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm. Good night,
all we
Mark.
know is, we know all that she had the dark saber. She was ruling Mandalore. Excuse me. Somehow it ended up with Moff Gideon, which raised the question. No, wait. Sabine had it, and then somehow Bo-Katan got it. So it's interesting that there's a lot of backstory to that. A lot of, well, Bo-Katan is uh, it's a bad idea to hang around her.
Well,
But
there's
she's
something
got
to.
some
I'm
some
sorry.
skeleton in her, her closet there.
Well, remember that Bo-Katan, at least from my point of view, her sister Satine was the ruler of Mandalore, and they clashed because her sister wanted peace. And I said that I felt that Boba was kind of following more Satine's teaching for peace versus versus what Bo-Katan wanted, which was a more traditional fighting kind of Mandalorian environment. And they could have had both. Like, it could have been people who wanted to spar and people who did not. But it tended to be a very clashing, a very confrontational situation. And as far as I'm concerned, that's probably not a good relationship to have with your sister. Even if
No,
you do disagree, that's not the person you should be sort of like fighting against or trying to take control away from. Like, it's a bad situation. And so I think that overall, I think a lot of Mandalorians kind of questioned her, because Satine was like, no, let's be peaceful. Let's be peaceful. And her sister's like, hell no. We're Mandalorians. We're gonna kick ass and take names. Like, it was kind of, very funny in a sense of the clash between their two styles of ruling. And I think that for the children of the Watch, they hid, as they said, in a specific area to kind of get away from all the fighting, because they didn't. Maybe perhaps it's not their focus. And wouldn't it be ironic if that's true, and they are somewhat more of a peaceful group, or want to go towards a more peaceful trope, right into the way that Boba kind of wants to be, or seems to be more peaceful right now. So it's kind of interesting to look at that. dichotomy of Mandalorian. Some of them were very, very like, I don't want to fight. And others were like, bring it on, come at me, bro, kind of like attitude. So I think that they're kind of trying to explore a lot of that. And, but it was actually very satisfying to hear the armorer say that Bo-Katan is a cautionary tale. And I'm like, ooh, I would just love to be able to tell someone that, that is a cautionary tale. I have no purpose or reason or occasion to ever tell anybody that. But I really love that she said that in there, because it showed that she knows all about Bo-Katan and all of that stuff that's going on. And I hope going forward, the armor is going to share a whole lot more, because Vizsla and the armorer know a hell of a lot more than poor old Din. So, Din is at the disadvantage of just not having as much information as everybody. Like, it's, he's kind of like at a loss. But what I wanted to say is that there is an article. I don't even know if I can share it, but the article was in, it's in comicbook.com. So it's not really a groundbreaking article, but it has to do with what you were talking about, Mikey Lito. And maybe I can kind of share the article, though I don't know if I can, but I'm going to try and do it here. Let's see, share screen. Let me see if I can do this correctly, because share screen works best on a good computer. Yep, I know that. Let's see if I'm doing this correctly. I really don't like to do this stuff on a live stream, but here we go. Chrome tab. And let me just see if I can find it. I think it's this one here. And I don't know if it's going to, I want to be able to show us all at the same time. So just bear with me for 1 second.
All right.
And I am not seeing it.
And why are you trying to bring that up? Why are you trying to bring that up? I wanted to bring one more thing up. Is that when she wanted to see,
yes,
when the armorer wanted to see the staff that he had, the stick. I'm surprised he didn't say he got it from Boba Fett, because I was expecting him to mention him.
Right. And let me see if I can stop this, because I don't think I'm doing it right. But what I was going to say is it showing the article?
No, it keeps going.
It's showing us.
It looks like it buffers, like it's going to show it, and then it just brings us back into the fold.
Okay, so then it's not going to show it. But the article is, and I apologize, guys, but I will put the link to the article in the chat section, so that we can all see it if you want to here. And let's just see if that's going to work. So the article is from Comic Books. It's just an ordinary article. It's not that long. And it talks about exactly what you were alluding to, Mike Alito. The article says,
Aha.
What
She's
happened?
just extra stuff out of the conversation.
Oh, okay. I was trying to see if I could pull up the article.
Yeah.
Give me a
She
second
put
here.
the link in the chat. Come back, RM. Well, for those of you who are just joining us, RM has somehow ejected herself from the conversation here. Overall,
There she is.
yeah. Overall, did you enjoy the episode?
Yeah, I overall I did enjoy the episode. RM, I see you're back.
yes, can
I'm
you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry
somehow
about that.
deleted yourself.
I'm trying to pull up the article myself.
Yes. And so what I was going to say is the article says, and I apologize, guys, for the crash. Star Wars fans clash over the Mandalorian taking over the Book of Boba Fett. And I'm just going to read. It's not a long article. And thank you, Mikey Lito, for even looking for it. This week's episode of the Book of Boba Fett did things a little differently. Specifically, it took a detour and caught up with Pedro Pascal's Din Djarin from The Mandalorian to tease where he's been and how he'll return to the narrative. For some viewers, it was a welcome deviation. Finding out what his character has done since his series wrapped up was a bomb, while others saw this lack of the show's title character as a betrayal, or at the very least, a head scratcher. We've collected some of the varying reactions to the episode below. So, what I think is interesting about that is, Mikey, this is what you were talking about, or at least I think this is what you were referring to. The idea that this is supposed to be the Book of Boba Fett, but this episode did not feel like the Book of Boba Fett to me. What did you think?
It absolutely did not feel like the Book of Boba Fett to me. This was an episode of The Mandalorian, and Fennec Shan did a guest appearance at the end. Because everything about the episode, the production, the director, the stars, everything was from The Mandalorian. And Fennec Shan dropped in to say, "Hi, everybody, hey audience, how you doing? Be sure and come back next week and what have you. We'll have more boba for you. See ya." And the only thing that surprised me was that they just didn't have the full on theme to the. I mean, they had it all through the episode. I mean, all the score music was from The Mandalorian. The only thing was the end credits theme was still the Book of Boba Fett. So it was like the Book of Boba Fett container, and then we have an episode of The Mandalorian inside of it. And I even commented on Twitter, it's not surprising that the most popular episode of the Book of Boba Fett was a hidden Mandalorian episode.
Yeah, and in the article, it shares some other fans' point of views as well. One person says just an episode of The Mandalorian instead. Just show an episode of The Mandalorian instead. Do I have to think of everything? And another person says the entire episode was effectively exposition and the construction of 1970. No, this is not the right one. I'm sorry. Yeah, so the best episode of the Book of Boba Fett is the episode that is basically The Mandalorian. And one other person says the best episode of the Book of Boba Fett is just The Mandalorian season 3 episode 1, bruh. So, but some people are saying that they're not complaining. That's how I felt. What do you think, Tom? What do you think are you conflicted about the fact that that switch was made that way, or how do you feel about it?
No, I don't feel conflicted. I think that, like I said before, a lot of the things they do in this series are chosen for a reason. We don't know. Like, if we were to, I have, my theory is Boba Fett is playing his cards close to his chest. So are the writers. Like, there's a plan in place. And slowly, very slow. It's a slow burn, this show, but it's great because it's building up to something, but it's doing it in such a subtle way. Not that you're going to figure it out, but it's great character building in a way. And they brought in Mando to not take things away from everything, but to say, okay, in the last episode, Fennec says, well, you can hire muscle if you can find it. And then you hear the Mandalorian sound. So you're getting what Mando's been up to all the way up to the point where he meets up with Fennec. So that's Mando's his type flashback in a way. So then it gets all the way up to where he meets Fennec, and that's the present. She offers him to be muscle. She offers him money, or credits, I should say. He's like, no, this one's free. Just let him know I have to go and meet a little friend.
I know, right? It was so great to hear him say those words, Tom.
Yeah. And
I was so happy to do that.
Great. the great thing is now is that we have the seventh, no, the second and the ninth. Those are the two final episodes of Book of Boba Fett. So in these next two episodes coming up, we are going to start to see what this whole plan is, where this is all going to go. I mean, this is all my theory of what's going on. You don't have to agree with it because it's everybody can have their own opinion. Um, I think that once this the season's over and we finally find out the big reveal of what's going on and what this big plan Boba Fett has, you can go back and watch it and then maybe start to figure out where the little, um, the little hints of what he's going for is. Because I think once you watch it all together at once as like one big movie, it'll be more clear. That's what I think. A lot of
which
people
means
won't agree with that, but that's just what I think.
which means it should have been a binging show instead of a weekly release. It should have been a binging show.
Yeah, but you know what? The problem with that is you're going to get people who are going to go watch the first episode and then the last episode and just spoil it for everybody so they don't have to watch the entire series. And when you do it week by week, you got that, okay, I don't see where this is going. Maybe they'll show it next week. And you keep going back to it till it's revealed. That's why they do the Marvel thing the way they do it, where they release it week to week. It's so that no matter what, if you don't like the episodes or if you do, you're still going to talk about them. And you're still going to have that anticipation for, okay, is next week going to be better or is next week going to be bigger? And are they bringing someone in next week? I mean, this episode here, episode 5 or chapter 5, I should say, was directed brilliantly by Bryce Dallas Howard,
Mm-hmm.
who is becoming a fantastic director in her own right. Where she
Yes.
started out as an actress, just like her father started out as an actor, and now she's getting more into directing. So I think at some point she's going to stop acting and she's going to probably go to full-time directing, and she's going to be just as brilliant as her father is with what she chooses. And so starting with the Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, and then going into Book of Boba Fett, these little shows are just her ways of getting her feet into the pool of directing. But she does a beautiful job, and she has an eye for what she does.
She really does. And we've really just benefited from her work. She certainly has a feel for what I feel is the Star Wars universe. I do have another question for you both. And it has to do with the fact that Din admitted that he took his helmet off to the armorer. And there was some kind of like, it felt very uncomfortable because he did not want to answer the question. And it was like a kid who got caught at school. He's like, did you do this, Din? Did you do it? And he just, didn't want to admit it, but he admitted it. And she tells him this story that, like, it seems like he has to go to the mines of the warders in Mandalore. And I'm thinking to myself, well, he can't go there. That place probably doesn't even exist anymore. Is she sending him on a wild goose chase, sort of like a quest that can never be fulfilled? Like, what's going on with that? Why didn't she just say, you can redeem yourself doing this instead? What she sounded like she was asking him to do seems impossible. Is she asking him to do an impossible quest just to be called, another, to become a child of the Watch again? Is it impossible or is it achievable?
It's probably achievable, which I think will probably, I'm such a cynic. We'll probably see we'll see in season 3 that will be a major part of season 3. After he reunites with Grogu. I agree with you that he has to reunite with Grogu. I just want to say that Tom, I'm hanging on your theory, and I agree with Darth and Mark. I better see some Godfather like action in the last. I want to see a banther head on the mayor's bed
Yeah.
in chapter 6.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
I actually like that scene that you're talking about, RM, where he had to confess. It's just like the audience knows the answer that you that you have taken your helmet off. So what are you going to do and what have you? And that just shows what a stand-up guy that he is, because he came across and he could have said anything that he wanted to say, and he told the truth. So that just shows the character that he has, that Din has.
Tom, what's your thoughts?
Well, I brought this up this morning about this. Is that when she says that to him, like, did you take your mask off? It focuses on Din and his mask, and then she asks it again, and you just hear the quietness. But looking at the mask, there are two scenes in this show when you notice it. The emotion that comes from him, like, oh, and that scene you get that do I say this? Do I not say this? So you can tell emotionally he's thinking about, do I lie or do I tell the truth? He told the truth because it would be honorable no matter what the outcome is. And then she's like, well, you're no longer a Mandalorian. And immediately he goes, well, how can I redeem myself? She goes, well, you can go to Mandalore, you can go into the mines and do whatever it is that he needs to do. And uh, excuse me, she says that, and I think she says that for a certain reason. It's because when he was using the dark saber, he could not focus. His focus was all on Grogu. That's why
Okay.
the dark saber kept getting heavier and heavier, and it sort of mirrored what Obi-Wan would say to Luke: "You must clear your mind." When he had the little ball that would fly around, and he was hitting it, and his eyes were covered. You must clear your mind so you can get the opponent. And it was sort of the same thing with the dark saber, which really, I was like, oh, okay, I see where this is going now. He has to clear his mind. He has to stop thinking about Grogu for at least 5 minutes and focus on the enemy that is in front of him, so he can win this thing. And
And
that's
uh,
the second part was when he was on the transport ship, and the little Greedo like boy pops his head up and waves at him, and you could see the emotion of, I miss Grogu. Even though he had the mask on, you knew that's what he was thinking, and somehow he emoted that emotion through a mask that barely, you can't see any emotion in his face, but you could tell that's where it was coming from. So those are my two favorite parts of that series, of how he could emote that, because it's very hard to do that with a mask like that.
yes, I agree with you. And the other thing I wanted to say, kind of looking at this from a from a whole perspective, is now that we've seen this episode and we know Mando is kind of like playing, it feels like he's going to be playing a more significant role than what I originally thought. I originally thought he might be coming in there and providing sort of like ground support. You'd see him kind of zip in, kind of like the way we saw Boba Fett in the Mando series, where Boba Fett didn't take over the Mando series necessarily. Like, he was prominent in a few scenes, but it wasn't sort of like the whole, maybe one episode where he was more prominent. But now I'm wondering whether Mando is actually going to be somewhat more involved in this activity, other than just giving him support as a hired gun. Will he actually have a stake in this underground world once Boba takes complete control, do you think?
That's a hard question to ask. Maybe, I don't know. It depends. Well, if asked, I think he could either say yes or I'm sorry, but I'm on my own journey right now. You know, with what he needs to do to redeem himself. But I could probably see him doing that. But it all depends on if he really wants to redeem himself or just keep going with the flow.
Mikey?
Mm, I'm not really sure.
Yeah. It's something to think about because we've been thrown so many twists and turns in this particular series. You know, none of it is what we all could have predicted or thought. And I have to give them credit for at least trying to keep certain things a secret, except for, of course, the appearance of the Mandalorian. But, you know, I'm completely at a loss as to what the next two episodes are going to be like. I have a feeling that there will be more action in those episodes, but personally at such a loss. You know, at least in some of the other series that we've seen, we knew that the next episode would that something was very specific was going to occur, and I can't say that about this series. I cannot say that at all. In fact, I don't even know if Boba Fett's going to be in the next episode.
Well,
Is
see,
Boba Fett?
this is another reason why I'm kind of subscribing to Tom's theories, is because all of these episodes were written by Favreau. Even though we were all surprised that this was a Mandalorian episode, it was well written. So you have to wonder. I mean, nobody just turns it on. I mean, I write. You don't just turn it on and turn it off as to like what level of writing that you want to do. So there has to be some kind of purpose as to why the story's being told the way that it's being told, and that's the only reason why I'm kind of hanging on and hoping that Tom is right, because you know, yes, I noticed some of the comments. Darth is talking about that a lot of the second half of the episode was filler. That's not necessarily untrue, but it was kinetic filler.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot going on. We saw the course of the speeder race from what was the first movie, The Phantom Menace. We,
Right.
Yes.
we saw that in this episode. We saw the two rangers, pulling him over and saying, show me your ID. So, excuse me, there was a lot going on, even though there was nothing that really moved the plot forward, other than he has this fast starfighter, which I'm actually, to be perfectly honest, I'm wondering, like, where's Grogu gonna sit in this thing?
Yeah, well, maybe in the area where the astromech would normally be, because Pele specifically said that I didn't think you'd want an astromech because you don't like droids. So there was an
Mhm.
astromech portal that the astromech would sit in, and it's empty, and that might be perfect for Grogu. So, we'll see about that. But I honestly, that ship, it doesn't feel like a home the way, the Razor Crest felt for me, for Din, and for Grogu. Like that was their home. Like they could live in there. And
Right.
even if it's parked on a planet, they could still live in the Razor Crest. Like it was a place you could live in. But that other ship, it's not so conducive. It's kind of, you can't live in there and you can't carry bounties in there. So maybe he'll get an additional ship. This is just something he's using for now until he finds out what he wants to do. Darth Plato says that he thinks that Fennec was involved in the massacre. She was very convinced that the speeder bike gang did not kill the Tuscans. What do you guys think? Do you think she has the inside scoop as to what happened?
Well, she's a lot more lucid than Boba Fett is, so
Mhm.
she very well may know more than she's saying. And she's his legs. She gets around and what have you. that's why she showed up at the repair shop this morning, from my point of view. Uh, so she could very well know more than what she's saying.
Well,
Sure.
I just wanted to thank you both for joining me on this stream tonight. As far as I'm concerned, this Mandalorian episode revitalized things a lot for me. If I don't know whether it revitalized things for what's going to happen with Boba, but if this is an insertion into the series, and I think that it added a lot of excitement and a lot of new things we haven't seen before, and it answered a lot of questions that we had. Never in my life did I think there'd be a little chainmail thing for Grogu or whatever this thing that's going to protect him that was made. I'm assuming it's just people are saying it's chainmail, but I don't know what it is. But I have to say that I really enjoyed seeing it. I'm still so excited about it. And you guys coming on, thank you so much for supporting me, Tom Jr. Jackson, and for modding as well. I know he's exhausted because I've been keeping him up all day. And Mike Alito, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your
Well,
views.
thank
This
you
has
for
been,
inviting me.
of course, this has been so much fun. I've enjoyed having you both on. And Darth Plato amusingly says, whatever happens, it's going to involve a Rancor. I think you're right, Darth Plato. But guys, please join us again. I'm going to have a few more streams coming up over the next few days just to talk about a lot of different things in this episode, because there were so many things, so many questions and things that have come up that I'm curious about and would like to get your opinions too. So thank you everybody who came to tune in tonight. And I so appreciate it. And remember, everybody, please, when you're out there, remember to be kind.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.